Okay, giant pumpkins, Cucurbita maxima. So just an overview of genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs, which are organisms that have been genetically altered in a lab. Scientists use genetic modification to prevent against disease for humans, to improve and plants, to improve the taste of plants, the overall size and quality of plants. Genetic engineering is used to target specific gene sequences in DNA and alter organisms in a lab. So a little bit of history of the giant pumpkin, the Cucurbita maxima. It originated in South America over 4,000 years ago. Um, Pumpkins have been in North America since as early as the 16th century, and pumpkins of all types have been around forever since the Pleistocene period, which is millions and millions of years ago. Um, in terms of pumpkins specifically, farmers have historically they've always bred pumpkins for taste and size and appearance, trying to select for the best traits in their crops. During the time of the European conquest in South America, that early, there's documentation of squash up to 200 pounds. So there have been some pretty big squash for a while. In 1893, William Warnock presented a 365-pound pumpkin that he had bred himself. He presented it at the Chicago World Fair. And then in 1979, in Nova Scotia, Canada, a legend named Howard Dill bred the Atlantic giant pumpkin and its seeds, led to which have led to all giant pumpkins that are now in circulation and being competed with and being brought to state and county fairs and shown off and all that stuff. Um, they're grown in different places in the world, primarily in North America and the United States, mostly due to the environment in North America is favorable, and we have the culture here where people like to grow pumpkins really big and compete with them, so that's where they're grown. Naturally, Cucurbita maxima also grow in India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, and they haven't been genetically modifying these giant pumpkins for very long. It's so a very small percentage of them are GMO. So the strategy used, the technology to genetically engineer pumpkins is called CRISPR-Cas9. It's a fairly common technology. It is where scientists are able to identify the DNA sequence they want to alter, and the Cas9 protein cuts that DNA, and then they're able to use a guide RNA to alter the information, either taking away or altering the genome, and then they are able to genetically modify the organism. So in terms of commercial uses, the main benefit is that bring they give a boost to the local economies, state economies where these contests are held. It's a pretty big business. I mean, there are competitions all around the US and North America. People order Howard Dill's Atlantic giant seeds and grow them and spend years and years trying to figure out the best way to make the pumpkins big. So there's absolutely an industry around it. They aren't commercially bred for consumption. They can be eaten because they're selected so much for size. Their taste is pretty limited. They're mostly water. But with CRISPR and other types of genetic engineering, it's not thought to be impossible that these things could taste better in a few years. So the main pro argument for the use of genetic engineering for giant pumpkins is that kind of the bigger the better. I mean, they've been trying to make these as big as possible for years and years now. And if that generates revenue for economies, you can bet that even bigger pumpkins that were made by science are going to get people coming out. So it's also an application of CRISPR, a use of CRISPR that doesn't have any ethical dilemmas surrounding it. CRISPR is used to protect against diseases in humans as well as plants, and used to select for size and a lot of different things. But with its uses in animals, there are serious ethical concerns. Sometimes it can alter parts of the genome that were not intended to be altered. So by using it on pumpkins, it's a relatively low risk application of CRISPR. But on the flip side, CRISPR is controversial ethically, and so it could be argued that any use of this technology, even on just a pumpkin, is an approval and is continuing the use of CRISPR, which some may be opposed to due to its capacity to make mistakes, let's say. And growing giant pumpkins in general is also wasteful and unsustainable. This could potentially change if they could be engineered to require less water, but as of now, the amount of water and the land that's used by giant pumpkins is not very sustainable and somewhat wasteful. So just a little bit of extra information here. The current world record for a large pumpkin is held by Matthias Willemins at 2,624 pounds, and he received an $8,000 prize for that. Each of these pumpkins can contain up to 800 seeds, so you can see how Howard Dill's Atlantic Giant that he bred in the 70s, the descendants of those seeds are still being used today. And an interesting thing for anybody looking to grow these, it can be the only pumpkin on the vine if you want it to get big. So there's that. And here are Works Cited. And thank you for listening.